it going, everybody? This is saxophonist Ryan Devlin. I'm happy to be back here on the Jazz Lesson Video channel. Today we're going to be talking about different techniques to add to your one-chord soloing. All of the techniques that we're working on today can be found in our 68 Phrases on One-Chord Vamps resource from Jazz Lesson Videos, written by Chad Lifowitz-Brown. These are some techniques that I worked on with Chad while studying with him during my undergrad years. So let's dive right into it. So as you heard me play in the first clip, the tune we're going to be basing all these one-chorded vamp solo techniques off of is John Coltrane's Impressions. This is a song that actually has two one-chorded vamp sections. The first one is concert D minor, or E minor for B-flat instruments. I'm playing tenor. And then goes up a half step to concert E-flat minor, or F minor for B-flat instruments, and then back down. So all these techniques that we're going to be working on today are going to be based off of the concert D minor section, or E minor for me on tenor. So the first technique is going to be Melodic Cells. If we go to our resource, we're going to look at one of the E minor 7 lines here. So let's take a listen to this line. Now let's analyze this. So anytime I'm playing melodic cells, practicing them or playing them, for me, I like to think about the note that I'm starting on and the note that I'm ending. Really, the stuff in the middle can be as chromatic or as diatonic as you want, but the beginning and the end is the important part. The end note is the target tone, and the first note is the starting tone. So if we look at our line here, in our first measure, we have two 4-note cells that are targeting chord tones of E minor. So we start on B, we move down chromatically down to A, and then back up to B, and then we do the same thing on E. Start on E, move down chromatically to D, and then go back to E. So that's inside. Our second measure, we are now targeting extension tones or outside tones. D sharp, major 7 on a minor chord, definitely a color tone. We start on D sharp, go down to D, C sharp, D sharp. Then we do the same thing on the flat 13 of B sharp or C. Then go down to G sharp, then hit A sharp, the tritone, and then back up to C or B sharp. Then in our third measure, we go back diatonic and target B twice with two different cells. And then at the end, we target the tritone, or A sharp, B flat, same notes. Go down to G sharp, back up to B sharp, and then resolve down to the third and the root. So it's interesting, when you're practicing melodic cells, either reading them out of our resource or just practicing them by yourself over a one-chorded vamp, think about the notes that you're targeting. For a chromatic sound that's still diatonic, try targeting chord tones like the 1, 3, 5, or 7. Then for that more aggressive, kind of outer spacey, outside sound, try targeting using the same cells or the same shapes like we have here in our resource, but try targeting the outside tones, major 7s, tritones, flat 13s, flat 9s, sharp 9s. Now here's an example of me trying to play this over Impressions, just thinking about playing chromatic cells over those two one-chorded vamps. Alright, so for technique number 2 of soloing over one-chord vamps, we're going to be checking out outside pentatonics. So in this example, in our resource, we are taking the E minor pentatonic scale and the F minor pentatonic scale in one line. So we're shifting from the inside tonality of E minor to the outside tonality of F minor, playing off the flat 9, and then resolving back to E minor. So let's listen to this line. Alright, so as you can see, that first measure, we're playing some really nice diatonic shapes in E minor. We have B natural, G natural, A, D. I like to memorize pentatonics in skips and steps. So anything that is going in the linear order of the scale, that's a step. Anything that doesn't go in that linear order is a skip. We have B to G, that would be a skip because we're skipping A. Then G to A, that's a step. A to D, that's a skip. D to B, that's a step. B to D, that's another step. D to G, that's a skip, and then G to E, that's a step. So sometimes that skips and steps method can help apply that new shape to different keys, if you want to check that out. Then when we go to our second measure, we're now in that up a half step tonality of F minor. So this is grabbing some tension because of all those extension tones and outside tones that we're using, and this is all while over E minor. And then we eventually, in our third measure, resolve back to E minor pentatonic. So experiment around with playing lines like this that vary in amount of bars per pentatonic scale. It's fun to try 2 bars inside, 2 bars outside, back inside, or 1 bar inside, 2 bars outside, 1 bar inside. There's lots of great examples of this by the John Coltrane Quartet. I think he was really one of the curators of this kind of playing. If you check out the whole Love Supreme album, it's on there. There's a great solo of him doing this on a blues, the 3rd movement Pursuance. Also, one of the solos that Chad had me transcribe when I was working with him, kind of working on pentatonics and pentatonic shifting, was Take the Coltrane by Duke Ellington. Coltrane solo on that is a masterclass in how to play pentatonics over different chords. So definitely check those out. So now here's an example of me playing pentatonic shifting, outside pentatonics, on top of John Coltrane's Impressions. All right, for our third technique, we're now going to check out implying different substitutions on top of our 1-chorded vamps. So we're still sticking with that E minor tonality, but in this line, we are implying E flat 7. Let's take a listen to it. All right, so just like we were working on the minor pentatonic shifting, going to a different tonality, we're doing the same thing now, but instead of thinking about it from a pentatonic standpoint, we're thinking about it from a dominant chord, almost playing it in a bebop sort of way. So as you can see in this line, we start in E minor for the first 2 notes. We kind of shift to E flat with that G sharp in a way. I think of it kind of as a chromatic approach to the minor third. So I'm just going to say the first 2.5 beats are in E minor for now, in that first measure. Then once we hit that B flat, we are now in E flat dominant 7. And this shape in the middle, the second measure here, is very bebop-esque. A fun technique to try over 1-chorded vamps, or really playing outside and adding substitutions in general, is to take common bebop language and apply them to keys they don't come from. I think this is a technique that Chris Potter does really well. So take a bird line, maybe in the key of F major, and try and play that over Impressions. It's just a cool thing to add different pieces of language out of context. I'm a big fan of that. But as we continue through this line here, we go through E flat 7, playing very diatonically in E flat 7, all the way to the 3rd on the downbeat of the 3rd measure, that G natural. We go up, we're basically now back in E minor. We have a little chromatic cell with the leading tone, D sharp, being used, and then we resolve to the 3rd and the 5th at the end of the measure. So this is a really interesting way of adding a different kind of tonality to your 1-chorded vamps, thinking about maybe playing in a different style, but just applying a new dominant chord, like a chord substitution rather than a scale substitution, over your 1-chorded vamps. So here's me now doing an example of this over Impressions. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed today's video. These are just some techniques to add into your 1-chord vamp soloing. I think it's really interesting how we can add these different techniques to multiple styles of improvising on 1-chorded vamps, like rock tunes, pop tunes, jazz tunes, modal tunes, funk tunes, all this stuff. It's really cool how we can add different kinds of vocabulary and language across all these different styles. A lot of my favorite saxophone players like John Coltrane, Michael Brecker, Steve Grossman, Chad Lefkowitz-Brown, Jerry Bergonzi, they all use these concepts in multiple different styles to add some different colors and techniques to their soloing. Remember, all these techniques can be found in the 68 Phrases on 1-Chorded Vamp Solos by Chad Lefkowitz-Brown in our JLV PDF resources, and you can use my code RD5 for $5 off. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good one.